But without further ado, I told you in the beginning of the program, I have an exclusive interview. A lot of you all are familiar with this voice, but those who aren't familiar, you will be today. Can I give a warm welcome for none other than the Honorable Commissioner Alana Sanders? Great afternoon. How you doing this afternoon?
I am doing amazing. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm honored to be here.
Of course. You have been requested a lot, so we are honored to have you, and we're going to get right into it. Now, Ms. Sanders, as we know, this is one of the most historical elections of 2024 taking place. We have a very, very stark contrast. We have none other than, of course, Vice President Harris, and we have former President Donald Trump. You being a leader inside of the woman area, you're doing so much out there. I would love to get your perspective. First off, as we approach Election Day, how do you think the presence of women in leadership roles like VP Harris influences voter turnout among female constituents?
Women are your number one voters, especially here in the state of Georgia. We are the dominant voters, especially African American women. Being the only woman on a board of 6 men and the first African American to actually sit in my seat, I understand what Kamala Harris, Vice President, let me get her title right. Vice President Kamala Harris is going through and what she experiences as a woman and also as a minority woman sitting in a seat that's dominated by men. In the political world, we get a lot of scrutiny. We get a lot of different stereotypes of what a woman will be or should be, or based on somebody's past history and so forth, and versus allowing us to be us and getting to know us. So stereotypes have taken a part of this congressional, I would say federal election because of what people see Black women to be.
Wow. And with so much rhetoric out there, I mean, we get these calls every day on the radio. For somebody who's literally entrenched inside of this leadership work, how does that reflect to you all that's constantly doing this stuff every day? Like, how do you navigate through that landscape? I got my sisters tuning in now, and I told her the topics that we was going to be discussing, and it was something that was really shared. You know, there's a lot of young women who would love to be in these positions, but they see rhetoric like this every day. How are you just navigating through that landscape?
I would have to say this: politics is not for everybody. Definitely tell individuals that. And you first have to know the reason why you're running for this position. I didn't run because I wanted to be the first African American woman. I didn't really realize that until I stepped into this role. And so I stepped up for a change, to see a difference in a community that was lacking and known as a stepchild in the area in my county. So navigating through this position, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. They had to get to know me. Of course, as you stated, stereotypes play a big role in this. They take passion as being aggressive because, as you know, being a Black woman, the first thing they want to say is that we're angry. We're not angry. We're passionate about a situation. And so you have to deal with all those different things that are coming at you from left to right, right to left, and have to navigate through it all, and as well as playing the political game. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not a fan of politics, but I love public service. If you hear individuals call me a politician, I have to always correct them and say I'm a public servant because public servants serve the people. They care about the people. They care about the needs. And being a woman and also a mother in this role, I look at it from a different perspective for those who are just in this field for selfish gain or for selfish reasons. And so when you have an elected official who actually is in a role who cares about people, you're going to see the job is done, and they're going to put themselves on the back burner to help those that they are serving.
Ooh, you make it hard to follow up. But this brings me to this question, which is, I feel is very fitting for now. Can you highlight some recent legislation spearheaded by female lawmakers that you believe will have a lasting impact on society? I mean, a lot of people don't realize a lot of women out here are trailblazing a lot of the very, very transformative legislation that we have out here today. Could we just speak about some of that just to highlight the importance of it?
Well, I can think of one right now that's it's recent. My state representative, Sharon Henderson, who just passed a bill on the state of Georgia level and to allow women to be able to receive the medical attention they need for breast cancer awareness.
Wow.
With her putting that in place, it allows those women who don't have the medical assistance or do have the funds to be able to get assistance in regards to breast cancer. As we know, breast cancer is one of the number one issues or number one diseases that are a cause of death of African American women. And so with her having that bill passed in her first term as a state representative in the state of Georgia, that also helped women who need that assistance to be able to get that treatment for breast cancer awareness.
Wow, that is amazing. And for those who may be like, how are you all getting that down? Could you speak to some strategies that you've done that you found effective in overcoming a lot of those challenges of being the only woman in the room?
Being the only woman in the room, I'm glad you asked that question, because it's a lot of things that you have to do being the only woman. First, you have to have them get to know you. A lot of times when you're the only woman in the room, people automatically think you're going to be a certain way or a certain type of female. Let's keep it real. They're going to automatically think, okay, she's in this role. And then they also play on education, because I am an educated woman. They first think, okay, she's a black woman. She's a woman coming in this field. She's educated. So she's going to try to take over this meeting. She's going to try to take over this board with her presence. And you have to understand that we are individuals. We coming here to do a job. We had people who elected us to do a job. While we were campaigning, we told these various things to our constituency, those when we were running, that we was going to make certain things happen. So as an elected official, when you get in that role, those are the things that you want to see be successful. So your goal and your mind and your agenda is to make sure those things are definitely taken care of first. And so you have to get to know your board. You have to get to know personalities. It's an interesting thing, because you have to learn the personalities in the room. Because certain things you may say, with me being a strong woman and a confident woman, certain things I may say may tick somebody off because they may have some I wouldn't say trauma, or some things that triggers off their personalities. And so you have to get to know those individuals in the room in order to be successful. And once you do that, you're able to navigate. Now, that may be an easier said than done, because we have some people who, like I said earlier, who are there for personal agendas and personal gain. But you have to be able to get your point across. And also the other thing, Chris, is making sure those constituents who put you in that seat are with you throughout your tenure, throughout your term. I always tell my residents, I call them my neighbors. I don't like the word constituency, because I live in the neighborhood. It's a little bit different when you're a local elected official. I see these people in Walmart. I see them in Kroger. I see them in the grocery store. They're my next door neighbor. So I call them my neighbors. So I tell them all the time, you wanted to see a change? You wanted to see a difference? I need to see you at those meetings fighting for those causes that you want me to fight for, versus me always being the one on the chopping block. They have to hear from the people. If they do not hear from the people, they don't think that issue, it matters. It's relevant, because they're saying, okay, you're fighting for an issue, Commissioner, but where's the people? Where's the people who put you in place? Where's the people who are fighting for better roads, or fighting for economic development, fighting for medical, fighting for those various things? Where are they? The same thing dealing with Kamala Harris. Once we put her in place, you still have to be with her. There was thousands of people at those rallies. Thousands at those rallies. Those same people that was rallying for her to run for president of the United States need to be the same people rallying behind her when she needs to have those issues done and rectified, and going through Congress and making sure those senators and congressmen, congresswomen are voting for those issues dealing with Medicaid, Medicare, dealing with our housing, our taxes, homestead exemptions, or whatever we need. They need to be the voice. It cannot always come from her. The people who put her in place need to be progressive.
Whew, that is a lot. Now, Ms. Sanders, we're going to go to a quick break. We have a few callers on the line. Are you open to taking a few questions on the next segment?
I sure am.
Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, right now you are tuned in to my exclusive interview with none other than the Honorable Commissioner Alana Sanders. We got a few callers on the line. We're going to get to you on the next side. You're tuned in to Let's Talk About It, only on News and Talk 1380 WAOK, the most informative radio station in the land.
Nation, you realize all the time we wasting. You realize all the pain we facing. Please pour a cup feminine libation. My gosh,
welcome back.
Please
Welcome back to News and Talk 1380 WAOK. It is your main man, Chris Smith, executive producer of Let's Talk About It. But today we are in the hosting chairs, and you are tuned in to none other than the most informative radio station in the land. Let's talk politics, community issues, social awareness, current events, culture. What is on your mind is on my mind. Right now, if you're tuned in to the sound of my voice, it is 1:50 p.m. in Atlanta, Georgia. It's a bit cloudy. Those who are traveling on the road, make sure that you are driving safe. I have an exclusive interview taking place right now with none other than Commissioner Alana Sanders. We got a few callers on the line right now. Let's go ahead and get to our first caller on the line. We have Mr. Omega out of Atlanta. Great afternoon, sir. What's on your mind today?
Okay, Brother Chris is doing a magnificent job, and you got one of the most exciting black women in the state to me right now.
Say it again.
Especially in the county.
Say it again.
In the county of, yes, sir, one of the most, yeah, she's lighting it up, and people are sleeping on this one here. How you doing, Commissioner Sanders? So
I'm doing amazing. How are you, my neighbor?
So look, I just want to just go cut right to the chase.
Let's do it.
So we got this election coming up on Tuesday, and I wrote it early. So what I did when it came to our Board of Commissioners decision, of course, you know that if for the rest of the listening audience, if y'all go online, and I'm sure that the commission can speak at large about it, but the current Board of Commissioners chairperson is under federal indictment, which means that the Board of Commissioners right now was somebody appointed by Governor Kemp. And my issue and my concern is stewardship in our county. So my question is, and I already know the answer, but I just want to hear from your mouth. How can we as constituents and neighbors in this marvelous county of Newton, how can we wrest control from a governor who does not care about our issues in the minuscule way? What is it that the voters can do on Tuesday to kind of do a course correction?
Well, let me first start with, yes, we do have a chair that's currently federally indicted that was appointed by our governor. But what residents can do, there's write-ins that they actually can do that as well. But there's also process in regards to the write-ins. But one of the main things that the constituency, my neighbors, as I say, I don't like the word, but it's just to let people know who I'm talking about when I say my neighbor, I'm talking about the constituents of the county. What they can do, because based on Georgia law, the governor does have that authority to appoint or remove. That's what was given to him as the governor of the state of Georgia. The residents of the county needs to make their voice heard. They need to make their voice heard on what they want to see, what they want done in their county. Because I know, you have power as residents. You have power as people. Your power does not only come sitting in a seat. You have more power than elected officials because you hire and you fire us, regardless of that. So your voices definitely need to be heard at that gold dome. To your state delegation, you have certain senators and you have certain state reps that represent various areas of the county, and they answer to you. So making it known as residents what you want in your community. Who do you want to serve you? What type of leadership that you want and how you want to see this process go forward. So the voices of the people definitely need to be heard during this process on what you want and what you do not want.
Great question.
So is there any options to go beyond, just in a small way, I guess, when they get in the voting booth and they see the current Board of Commissioner, he still is on the ballot. So are we able to write your name in as, our choice for Board of Commissioner chairperson? Can we do that? And how do we,
I love my neighbors. I get this question all the time. I can't tell you how to vote because I won't be able to do that. But if that's your liberty to do so, yes, you can do that if that's your liberty to do so. But like I said, I love my neighbors. I'm trying to be careful with what I say in regards to that because as elected officials, there's certain things that I can and cannot say. so as a voter, you can do that. If that's your liberty to do so, you can.
Awesome.
Okay, so what I'll tell you then, because this is coming from me as a neighboring constituent in the county of Newton, you spell that name Alana Sanders. Get the name right, because we got to get this right, y'all. If we don't get this right, I feel that Newton County, with all the potentials and stuff that we got going on over here, we're going to look, and it's not a swipe, but it's just saying, look, if y'all want to see bad, look at what happened in Clayton County. And I don't really want our county, because it has a lot of potential, a lot of growth, a lot of industry. Mm-hmm. But like I said, you see what happens when people who are given the trust, you end up with something like what happened over in Conyers with the biolab. And that was the 5th fire in less than 4 years, from what I understand. So anyway, keep up the good work, our beloved commissioner, and I'll see you at the top.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your question. Thank you so much for your question, Omega. We just got a few minutes left. I want to be conscious of your time because I want to make sure people know how to support you. We're going to be able to get to one more caller on the line. We have Mr. Gideon from Atlanta, Georgia. Great afternoon, sir. You're live on Let's Talk About It. What's on your mind, sir?
Well, are you able to hear me, first of all?
Yes, sir. You sound clear.
Okay, great. Excellent. First of all, I would never vote for white supremacy or the acolytes that support a system that has traditionally, historically demeaned, devalued, and corrupted the culture of people of color in this country. For those who choose, that's their decision. Mm-hmm. And it speaks to, and let me just say this as well, America deserves Kamala. It does, because men at this stage, we're at our weakest point. And, you know, Chris, you know I love you, my brother.
Yes,
you have been brought up. You have great cultural and reflective spirit. But you in Austin, one thing that you mentioned in your opening statement, which highlights the point that I'm making, is that you mentioned your mother, but you didn't mention your father. And that's the hallmark of this social change and cultural change that we see happening in Black America, where our fathers are diminished, and hopefully one day you will be a father.
Yes, sir.
And hopefully you will be in your children's lives where that your children would speak of you honorably and lovingly. But we all too, in many instances, find that fathers are left out of the role. And this is what I see happening with the paradigm shift and cultural shift in America with Kamala, where women from America and their mindset are taking over, and weak men who have failed to hold up the banner of manhood are falling to the wayside.
Okay,
I want to hear what.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you bring up. I've heard that, but I want to hear from a leader that's governing right now in the women leadership. Ms. Sanders, for those who have this, and thank you for your question, Mr. Gideon. I'm gonna bring you on the other side. For those who have this rhetoric that those who are supporting Ms. Harris, or if they're supporting a woman in leadership role, resembles weak men, what can you say to that to kind of address that misnomer?
That is definitely a good question, because that has been an issue with this election. Where
does that even come from? I'm a youngin', so like, where does that come from? Like, inform me. Why do people even feel like that?
I want to say it's an issue that came from slavery. I'm going to be honest with you. It came from far back, as far as how they diminished the male in the home, and so it has been something that's rooted within us. But to come more up to standard, is voting for a woman does not diminish the male in the home. Now, we do have an issue in our African-American generation where women have become dominant leaders based on single-family homes. For myself, I am thankful that I was able to come from a home with a mother and a father. Yes, so I know what it feels like to have a strong man in my life and also a strong woman in my life. But for those who may have not grown up with that standard, or been taught that because you're supporting a woman does not mean that you are lacking the things as a man. As I heard someone said, that men have ran this country for years. it is now time to allow women to be able to see what women can do. It's not saying that you are weak. It's not saying that you are lesser than. It's saying who is the most qualified for this position. Who is the most qualified to be the next president of the United States? Now, we look at Donald Trump and we look at Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be speaking nonpartisan, but correct me because I want to make sure I don't get your station in trouble.
No,
and so when we look at both of the candidates, we look at the qualification of the person who is the best one to put in office. We should not be looking at whether she's a woman, she's a black woman, she's often an Asian woman, whether he is a man or a white male. Who is the most qualified? Now, it also comes from that we as women have to always be 10 times as better. We have to have this amount of education. We have to have this. We have to have that. And even if you look in an employment system to where women can be doing the same job, have
Sanders,
the most education.
Ms. Sanders, apologies to cut you off. Sorry to cut you off. We got to take a quick break, and I know you got to go. So before we leave, on another side, I want you to finish up your question, and I want to make sure that you let people know how we can support you, your endeavors, and things that you got coming up. We're going to be right back on the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, you're tuned in to Let's Talk About It on News and Talk 1380 WAOK. I'll be right back on the other side. This is Chris Smith, and right now you're tuned in to my exclusive interview with none other than the Honorable Commissioner Alana Sanders. Welcome back to News and Talk 1380 WAOK. It is your main man, Chris Smith, and I'm coming to you live from the WAOK motherland. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am the executive producer of the program, but today we are sitting in the hosting chairs, and of course, when I'm sitting in, I got to make sure I have powerful people on the line. If you've been hearing that drop, ladies and gentlemen, Tuesday is election day. It is a must. You get out there and exercise your vote. Tuesday, people. Make sure that you get engaged. Right now, you are tuned into my exclusive interview with none other than the Honorable Commissioner Alana Sanders. She's been graceful enough to give us our time. And I got about just the last two questions before we wrap you up. Now, before we got off the last segment, you were finishing up your thought from what our caller, Mr. Gideon, stated. I'll let you finish, and I'll go ahead and hit you with the last question.
Well, just to complete, we should not be looking at the gender of the person running for this position. We should be looking at the qualification, who's the most qualified. And when you do your pros and cons on who is the person who should be the next leader for our nation, then that definitely should give you the answer. Voting for a woman does not diminish any male. Vice President Kamala Harris has to work with all genders, races, cultures, and colors once she becomes president of the United States. So I believe that there has been a stereotype out there in regards to, by putting a woman in leadership, that it makes the man look lesser than. That is false. That the stereotype is a narrative that should have not been created, and we're going to try to change the game on that one.
That's what I'm talking about. Love to hear it. Now, Ms. Sanders, we thank you for all the time you've been able to give for us, but for those people who are calling in or sending messages or tagging me, and they want to be able to support you in what you got going on, or in any way, shape, or possible, what are those ways that people can do that?
They can definitely do that on all social media platforms at Commissioner Alana Sanders. I know everybody call me Alana. That's okay.
I'm
used
so
to that.
sorry.
That's okay. That is fine. It's Commissioner Alana Sanders. You can go there, ALANA. The way it's spelled, people call me Alana, so I understand that. And so you can reach me there as well. And you were talking earlier, Chris, about how I support women being in this role. It was one of the questions you mentioned.
Yes, ma'am.
I actually wrote a workbook to help women get in this role. It's called Black Women in a Male-Dominated World, an Elected Officials Position. It's a complete workbook on how to get into the field of politics. If you want to run for office, it's written like a college textbook because I'm a college professor. So I wrote it in detail so they can have a step-by-step guide. They can find it on Amazon on how to become an elected official, a woman in this world. It also breaks down stories of being the only woman in this position. And I also have other commissioners and state reps who wrote in the book who are also the only female Black woman in this role. So that's something they could definitely go and seek to assist them to see if this is what they want to do.
Oh, can we say that title one more time, please?
Yes, sir. It's Black women in a male-dominated world.
Wow, that is amazing. Black women in a male-dominated world. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard that loud and clear. We have been speaking with the Honorable Commissioner Alana Sanders, and she has, of course, given an impactful amount of information. Those who want to be able to hear the review of this interview, it will be live on Odyssey platforms right after the show. Thank you again. We appreciate the time, and we hope to hear you back soon on WAOK.
Thank you for having me.